Hello and welcome to the Uplift Equine Foundational Horsemanship series. Today we're going to be introducing equipment to the horse. This helps with introducing any kind of equipment. Today we're going to be using the surcingle and saddle pad. But the big important thing that you want to remember with this exercise is that you need the horse to remain curious. Curious in what you're doing and making sure that it is fun for them. You do not want indifferent. Indifferent means that they have just given up. They're saying, you know what, I don't care what you do. You're just going to do whatever you want with me. And they're not engaged. Curious is keeping them engaged and allowing them to explore their world. Right now, I'm allowing him to explore it, but I'm giving him a parameter of don't bite. You can sniff, you can be okay with it, but don't bite. As with every young horse, there are things that you work with them on, and today is be curious, but please don't bite. I'm not going after him with my hand, because I do not want him to think that my hand is something scary and something that I'm going to use as a weapon against him. But I am giving him that boundary of, if you bite, you are going to get bopped or kicked. But if you explore, you will be fine. So since he was fine and curious and okay with me approaching him with the surcingle, I made sure that he was comfortable around the general area of his back that I'm putting it on. And since he seems just fine with that, I proceed with putting it on him while trying to keep my boundary of you can sniff, but don't bite. And he seems to have figured it out for now. So you can see how, since he's curious, he understands that I am not here to hurt him. I'm not here to make him completely uncomfortable. I'm only making him uncomfortable enough to be able to learn. So as I fasten the surcingle on, I'm not fastening it very tight, just tight enough that it doesn't shift around while he's walking. And since he seems to be okay with it, I start leading him around. And ultimately, I would take this and tack him up as if it's normal and lead him around and do all of my little groundwork things as normal. As my normal routine, I would do yielding of the hindquarters, I would do the passade, I would do lower and raise the head. All of those things that he's extremely familiar with, I will do that as if there is no surcingle, but I will do it with the surcingle on. And that will happen until he's completely comfortable with wearing the surcingle, and I am confident that he doesn't see it as something that is scary or different. So introducing the saddle pad, we will bring it over to, say, the mounting block or some central place in the arena, just for them to be able to sniff it and be okay with it. And I'll let him sniff it in my hand first, since he seems to be okay. And of course, with my little boundary of biting. And then I fly it around his body and make sure that he's okay with feeling it all over his body and okay with me swinging it around his body as well. If he was not okay with this, I would take a step back, make sure he's okay with it in front of him in my space, and then I'll approach him, and then I will approach him with it and go move it into his space. And then when he's comfortable with it in his space, I'll play around with it like that. But if they become so uncomfortable they become fearful, then you want to remove it and move it back into your space before you share it again. So here he is showing that he's completely comfortable with it. In fact, he's so comfortable with it, he's bored. But today he is learning to be a good boy about standing and not biting. So since he is good with this, I will then remove the surcingle and put the saddle pad on underneath of it, as I still measure and make sure that he is only nosing me and not biting me. And of course, I do this without thinking that there's anything wrong or anything different. So my body language doesn't change. This is completely normal for me. And if when they start moving around like that, like they're bored and they just want to go sniff something, or maybe they do need to move their feet a little bit because their anxiety is starting to move up, and moving around is a way for them to cope, I'll allow it. But I will not take the equipment off of them unless they are showing abject fear. So since he's comfortable, he's just either bored or just needs to move his feet around, he might be getting a cramp or something, then I will not remove it. I'll just move around with him until he's okay with standing still again, and then I will go about my business. This is important for young horses. And they're not necessarily getting away with anything, they're just learning how to manage and cope with things, and I'll allow them to do that. Because I eventually go back to, you still do need to stand still. And of course, I will start asking him to stand still, please. And there he goes, and I go back about my business. He will soon figure out that there's not much that's going to change if he moves around. He's just going to make my process longer. And there he goes. He was a good boy. So, just like before, I will move him around. I will do my groundwork routine with the saddle pad on underneath the surcingle, and then I will continue this as my normal routine for weeks or days, depending on the horse. And they will understand and learn that that's not something that they should be worried about. And I start with close groundwork first to bring down their anxiety without allowing them to go out onto a circle or go out on their own to possibly scare themselves and then get into a bucking fit where they can then hurt themselves. So I'll keep them close, and then I'll allow them to move out away from me with other groundwork, such as lunging, when I know that they are comfortable with this sort of thing. So I do understand that my surcingle is not necessarily fitting well with him, and I plan on rectifying that at some point. But since it is an early training tool currently, I'm not too concerned about it because the buckles are not interfering with his walking, and they are not on that nerve that runs from underneath their elbow down their barrel. So as you can see, that is exactly where the buckles should be. And as you can see, the buckles are much lower. But right there is where that nerve runs, and you do not want buckles on that part. So that is where it's avoided. And this works for this instance. If I did long lining or anything that involves the surcingle needing to be much tighter, I will refit it and make sure that the buckles are in the correct position. Thank you for watching and listening, and I hope you have a wonderful time introducing new equipment to your horses. And please, like always, smile during your training sessions. Say please and thank you to your horse, and have wonderful training sessions. Thank you. Have a good night.